I'll often get asked by people that are new to knife making, what are some of the next tools they should look at getting? Once they've got the basics covered of how to cut out the profile of a knife, like the shape, how to put in a bevel, drill the holes, what are some additions to a shop that would be worthwhile and logical? And that's going to be different for everybody, but I was kind of thinking, what are the simple tools that I didn't know about for knife making in the beginning, but I use them all the time? So I did a quick sweep of the shop and I kind of just walked around and I looked at everything that I had out, that was laying out because I had just used it. And here's a quick little rundown of some tools that you may not necessarily think as good for knife making, but I use them every day in my knife making and it might help you out. So the first tool that is not knife making specific is a paintbrush. Why? Why do I use a paintbrush? Well, I use it to clear chips in my drill press. I used to always just use my hands and sweep that away, but that's just asking for trouble. I've cut myself so many times and finally I was like, that is just silly. Buy a whole whack of them and leave them at every drill press, every milling machine. These things are fantastic. The cheaper the better. Next tool that is not for knife making, but I use it in my knife making, is specific if you're using stainless steel heat treat foil. And that is a set of these. These are sheet metal pliers. This here looks to be about a 4-inch set. I actually picked these up. Oh, that reminds me. Princess Auto is a sponsor of this video. So thank you, Princess Auto. Everything that I'm gonna show you today, you can get at Princess Auto, so that's handy. These, I think, are the only things that I didn't actually buy from Princess Auto. And again, I've had a lot of this stuff even before Princess Auto sponsored my channel. But these I picked up at a garage sale, and I use these for crimping the ends over when I'm making my foil packets. It's very fast. It's so much faster and safer than using your fingers. They also make 8-inch versions of these, so that could, in theory, do the entire length of the packet, depending on the size of knife you're heat treating, like something like this. These things are fantastic if you do stainless steel tool wrap in your heat treating cycles. Okay, here's a weird one. Magnetizer, de-magnetizer. Why would you use that for knife making? Why wouldn't you? The time in which I use this is when I'm doing handle scales that have fasteners in them. These little guys right here. Sometimes when you're assembling these little tiny screws, and I've got my T10 Torx driver, sometimes you're like lining things up and then your screw falls off and it's a real pain. So I went ahead and magnetized this thing so that these things are handy for all over the house. You know, if you're doing anything where you want this to be magnetized, there we go. Back in business, boys. All right, let's go. Now, I don't have to worry about this thing falling off. I can, you know, do my thing. Something little, like it's not really a big deal, but I do use it and I do like it. Also, I showed my youngest son how this thing worked and he thought it was so cool. Went around and like magnetized every screwdriver in the shop, so. Now there's that. Super basic. I'm assuming this might be a little too basic to be in this video, but a metal scribe. Carbide tipped metal scribe. These things are inexpensive. These ones generally come often with a magnet on the end, and that drives me nuts. So the first thing I do is I cut that magnet off because I don't want filings building up on it. I don't want it sticking to anything, and I'm not using this for retrieval of parts. I want this strictly for marking on steel, and now that's what it does. No extra fluff on top. Fantastic. Buy these a couple at a time. Keep the extras in a drawer where you know they're going to be. These are a consumable in my opinion. Another tool that I feel is a consumable, but very, very necessary, is an automatic center punch. Now I've had really good versions of these. I bought a Starrett one of these once and it ended up failing. It took about 3 years and I was using it all the time, but I find that these things, they just have a life cycle. Eventually they're just gonna stop working, or they'll, you know, when they start to fail, start to get old, they only work like every 3 or 4 times you try it. And so these things, I buy the cheapest ones I can find and buy 3 or 4 of them. Again, keep them in a consumable tool drawer so that when this one dies, you scrap it and you get a new one, you're good to go. These things are just so nice because you got your mark, and I find what I'll often do is I'll kind of lean the tip of it and you get it exactly where you want. And then give it a pop. Often I'll go over it with a hammer and a proper center punch to get a bigger hole for my drill bit, but these things are fantastic. Use them all the time. I like them. Another thing that is not for knife making, but I use it all the time, is a sheet metal gauge. So on this side, we actually have markings with all the gauge thicknesses, but if you flip it over, it gives you measurements, thickness measurements in thousandths of an inch. And this thing lives beside my belt grinder because when I'm grinding in my bevels, I have a target, right? Say pre-heat treat, I want 40 thousandths of an inch. Well, I can very quickly just line up, hey, and you know what I actually do? I actually put some markings on the common sizes so my eye's drawn right to it. But if I want 40 thou before heat treat, well, I've got 37.5 thousandths of an inch. I can just come here and like, boom, yeah, we're there, we're good all the way along. And when I'm doing my final grinds, like I like this one to be 20 to 25 thou. So I can just, as I'm grinding, keep bringing it, see which slot it fits in. 28, that's a little bit, it's going up too high. If we go 25, yeah, it's sliding on there. Now what about 21? Oh, so we are at 21 thousandths of an inch right there. And I can actually run it up and down the length of the blade just to make sure my thickness is consistent. This is way faster than using calipers. It's not going to give you an exact measurement. It just gives you a fixed measurement, but for grinding in your bevels, just checking things as you go, you can see right where we're fitting there. I can just drag it along, be like, yep, this whole thing is about 22 thousandths of an inch. Love it. And the last tool for this video is a proper set of tongs, even if you're not doing forging. I always used to use long reach needle nose pliers to put my knives in and out of my kiln for heat treating. And then I bought a pair of these. And what a difference. You know, when you've got, we're gonna do a little exaggeration, when you've got needle nose pliers, when they're closed, that's when they're parallel. So when you have something in there, you're only grabbing on those two little points. And I've dropped knives before. You get a nice hot knife out of the kiln, and because you're not getting a grip on it, it falls down, and now all of a sudden you gotta put it back in there. That doesn't happen when you've got a good set of tongs. Thankfully, Princess Auto was actually bringing in some fantastic metal tongs for blacksmithing, knife making specific tongs. I went last year and I bought all of them. And man, what a gem it is to put something in and out of a kiln. You're not like cranking on it, but you've got a very firm grip at the business end where it matters. And I never knew the value in using good tongs, even for heat treating knives in a kiln, until I started using them. And I would say, man, if you're using needle nose pliers, just go ahead and find yourself a nice set of blacksmithing tongs that fit the profile of the material you're working with, and you're gonna be loving life. Well, that's pretty much it. These are just some of the things that I was kind of looking at, like things that I use every day that you may not think of as being useful tools for knife making. You may have some of these in a different toolbox and you're like, hey, you know, I've got some of those snips. Next time I have to do a foil pouch, let me grab it and see how it works. Of all of these, other than the scribe and the automatic center punch, because those are just so basic, so elementary, this thing, man, if you get one tool out of here that you don't have, try one of these. You're gonna love life with it. So that's it. That's just a quick little video. Let me know in the comments if you have any tools that maybe were in a different tool pouch or tool bag of yours and you just grab them and you're like, hey, this works great for this application in knife making. These are fun discoveries, and this is just information that we can share with each other and make ourselves more productive, more efficient in the workshop. Thank you again to Princess Auto for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys for watching it. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.